for me. Blood in my dog and I can't see. I'm trying to be what I'm destined to be. And niggas trying to take my life away. I put a hole in a nigga for
What's up, YouTube? Little update video on the RB car and my villain's car. So if you remember at final bout, I had a little issue with like not having a catch can or breather on this fitting. So I did put an MPT to barb and built a bracket for a catch can. And then also my teammate and good friend Shane welded on a bung on the intake pipe. So my hoses will go from the valve cover to the catch can to the bung. I also forgot to mention an issue I was having with this car at final bout was my power steering was boiling after like a lap or two. I did wrap it up, but you can see it was just leaking all over the place and it was just getting hot, and there was no cooler setup in it. It was just direct to pump and direct to rack. I do have a universal cooler that I've always put on pretty much all of my cars. You can get them on eBay and just have a fitting in and out. And for some reason, when I was getting this car ready, I just totally spaced the fact that there was no cooler in the system. So I am gonna mount that. I ordered 2 of them. Figured I'd just put one in that car too, since it didn't come with a power steering setup at all. There's a pump on the motor, but there was no reservoir, no line to the rack, so I got to do all that. You can see I've spent some time just doing disassembly so far. So I did take the head to the machine shop and they said it was good. So I ordered a new set of valves. So hopefully they'll have that done by the end of the week and I can put it back on. I also took the knuckles off and sent them to Nate over at the villain's shop so I can get a villain's angle kit installed on this guy. And a bunch of parts have showed up. So I got adjustable arms for the rear. I got a factory power steering reservoir. I do have another cooler to put in the system on this. I did have a line made already for the rack to the pump. So when I get the cooler installed, I'll go from the rack to the cooler and then back to the reservoir as well. And then it's already got a fitting on here for the feed from the reservoir. Took the factory front brakes off. This thing did have dual Z32 rear setup, ecotec bracket. So I went ahead and just yanked the factory front brakes off. I got the Z32 front rotors already, just waiting for the PBM calipers to show up. So that way I'll match the PBM rear set. And here you can see my disassembly for the head. So I kind of start and work my way through. So that way when I get it back from the machine shop, I can just work my way back this way. Put all this stuff back in with the cams, put all this stuff back on the motor, and just kind of work my way. And then when I get to the end, I'll be done. Intake manifold is off. I did notice some of the IAC hoses were bad. Since I am doing a booster delete, I did cap this off. This one was already capped, this big one, but the cap was all crusty, so I went ahead and got 2 plugs. So plugged those off. Took the turbo off. This is actually a pretty cool turbo. You can see it's got oil and water, but you don't have to run water. It didn't have water cooling set up on it when I got the car. So I think I'm just gonna get it back together as simple as possible, since the water lines are already deleted on the motor and not going to the turbo. I'm just gonna put it back together the way it was and get it running and driving before I change any of that stuff. I do need to have Shane fix the intercooler piping because this had a blow-off valve and then they upgraded to this turbo. So I need to delete the blow-off valve on the intercooler piping. Got the ARP head studs. Those will go there. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Made a little list on the windshield of stuff to do. I have most of the brake line booster delete stuff. I am just waiting for the front brake line booster delete kit, so then I can get all the brakes hooked back up, but I'm also waiting for the PVM front calipers. So for now, I'm gonna get to mounting this power steering cooler. Whatever I do to mount the power steering cooler on this car, I'm just gonna replicate and just do the same thing over there. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. So usually when I mount these power steering coolers, I like to put them right there. It's kind of out away from all the heat sources, gets nice fresh air from the front end of the car, and you have all these metal parts here to mount to. If you look though, it's not quite wide enough to mount onto here directly. So usually what I do is just cut these plates out and tap the hole for a 10 mil bolt, which all of us Nissan guys have tons of those laying around. So then I bolt it to these plates, and then I'll just weld the plate to there and weld the plate to there. And then it'll be nice and secure. And then my lines can come off here and just go right up through there to the rack and the reservoir. Got this power steering cooler mounted. You can see I just welded the tabs on and then painted the lower part of this black because it was white and then it had some brown overspray. So cleaned it up a little bit and bolted the cooler on. It's good to go. I just gotta run the lines. And this car is now twinning. Same thing, made some brackets, welded them on, tapped the holes, put 4 10 mil bolts in. Now she's ready for lines 2. Some more parts showed up. Oh, so yesterday I actually got some work done on this thing. I took the front bumper off and ratchet strapped the top corner of this bash bar. So what happened is when I hit Jessica, it pushed it back, which lowered the bars down and back. So I put a jack underneath this corner and jacked it up while I had a ratchet strap right here going to my truck. So I've had force going this way and force going up right here, and it kind of just rolled this front corner back out where it's supposed to be, and the bumper is back on and looking good again. What else did I do? Oh, I got the power steering cooler in. See down there? It's a nice clean setup, a lot of fresh air, looks good. Lines are all ran. Drove it around the driveway, back and forth a bunch, burp all the air out of the system, and she works. Now, it's time for the catch can, which just showed up. So you can see I got that fitting on there with the cap on it right now. Made this bracket and then had Shane weld up that nipple onto the intake tube. And in case you can't tell, this is a universal oil catch can. It does have the option for a little air K&N style filter to go on top, but since this is a closed system, I don't want to create any vacuum leaks, so I'm just going to leave the cap in. It does have this little dipstick to check the oil level, but also when this is bolted on to the bracket, this whole bottom cartridge, easily just turn it a few times and it slides out, and then you can dump all the oil out and slide it back on. So maybe some YouTube magic will get this installed. There we go. Let's go from that fitting to the catch can. You can see it says oil catch can. And then from that fitting to the intake pipe. I'm gonna go throw some boost at it on some test drives and see how much oil collects in there, but pretty sweet. Only thing I really have left to do to it so it's driftable again. Well, I mean, I could drift it the way it is, but my tires were definitely wearing out on the inside a little bit at final bout, so I think I'm gonna pull whatever camber is in them right now back out so my tires will last longer and wear more evenly. So I need to adjust the rear alignment. And I got the front toe I got set yesterday, but my steering wheel's off, so I think I need to clock the steering wheel a little bit and then adjust the front toe again to kind of just center the steering wheel. it would be nice to just take it to an alignment shop like most people do, but I feel like every event or every other event, you know, you bump something or bump somebody or an arm comes loose or just something happens and your alignment's off, and I don't know. I just pull a tape measure, make it decent enough to drive fast and drift, and send it on down the road. Steering bushings showed up today. So you got new bushings for the steering rack because right now there's none. I don't know if you can see. So yeah, I don't know why somebody would rob the bushings out of it, but the steering rack looks like it's in good shape. There's just no bushings. I do have the rear arms too. Got some camber and tow arms. So technically I can get those put on, and then I can just jack the rear up to compress it, and then I can adjust the camber and tow, and then have the rear pretty much all done. I was gonna do the 350Z axle conversion and send the stubs out to Nate as well with the knuckles, but I don't know why I didn't. I was in a hurry to get the knuckles to him so I could get the front end back together when the PBM brakes showed up, and I forgot to take the stubs out. And I already planned on throwing the knuckles in a box yesterday to get them to Nate as fast as possible, so hopefully I can get the front end back together by the time the head's done from the machine shop. And I was going to work with the box of knuckles and didn't feel like going to work late and taking the stubs out. So I'll convert the rear axles to 350Z axles at another time. I'll probably just get the motor back together, get the front end all done, get everything else all buttoned up so it's running and driving and drifting, because I still have plenty of work to do before that happens. And then I'll do a couple more upgrades like the 350Z axles and stuff. So all right guys, one step forward, two steps back. So after putting the catch can set up on the S14 ecotec car, I went for a quick test drive, and it's getting a lot of oil in the catch can. So I went ahead, since Radium engineering is close, I went ahead and stopped by there, went over my setup with them and got some advice and checked out the products that they offer. And they recommended I do something a little different. So you can see I already took the catch can off, and I took the intake and front mount intercooler pipe out. Well, now I did. So the way I routed it was from this breather to the catch can to the intake. And then here's the other breather that goes also down to the intake, but it actually connects to the turbo. So what they recommended was not to introduce any of that oil into the intake system, because you can see it's going all over the place. And to go ahead and put both of these to a catch can that vents to the atmosphere. And they were nice enough to hook me up with this guy. So this is a nice large catch can, vents to atmosphere. Just around the edge here is where it vents to the atmosphere. It's got a dipstick, it's got two inlets, and then this whole bottom canister unscrews, and it has a drain if you want to put a drain back system back into the block. Not only will this be larger to hold more quantity, it will not introduce any more oil into my system, and it'll look a lot nicer because I'm gonna put it in the same spot. And then I do have some extra intercooler piping, so since I don't need this piece welded on here anymore, I'm just gonna take this piece off, maybe use it on another project in the future, and I'll just slide another piece of pipe in here that doesn't have a bung on it. Well, I got the Radium catch can mounted. Already looks a lot better. So just got to tighten these hoses. I was able to just pop this quick disconnect hose off both sides and plug the one on the turbo, and then just put the 3/8 line onto this fitting. So yeah, just got to tighten the hoses and then clean all the oil out of these lines and clean all these pipes out. and put it back together. You can see I got the one breather going to the catch can, the other breather going to the catch can, and this vents to atmosphere, and then it's nice and big. So I think at this point, I'm gonna drive it around like this and probably go to a drift event or two with it set up like this, because I didn't know how these engines act with overfilling the oil, because obviously with drifting, with LSs and JZs, RBs, SRs, you go over full, so that way you don't starve the engine of oil when you're drifting. So when I dump the catch can now, I don't know if it's because it's just over full of oil, because every time I read the dipstick, it says full. I've already dumped a lot of oil through the system while that final bout, and it still says full. So I'm gonna drive it around and probably drift it with this setup. And if I have to dump that once or twice, I'll just keep checking the oil level. And maybe once the oil level drops a hair below the full line, maybe it'll stop blowing so much oil into the catch can. So that's where I'm at. This car is good to go. As for the RB car, you can see I got the rear wheels on. I went ahead and put the adjustable arms, the camber arms and the toe arms on the back. Put the wheel on, kind of eyeballed the alignment, left everything loose until I get it actually back together and on the ground. But rear end's pretty much situated. Waiting on the knuckles from the villain's shop to come back so I can put the angle kit on. But while putting the new polyurethane bushings on the steering rack, I noticed the hard lines on the rack completely missing. So I went ahead and got on Chase Bays and ordered the AN line kit. So I'm waiting on that. And I still need to take all the OEM brake lines out and put the booster delete kit in and run all the brake lines. And then obviously I'll have to take the back wheels back off so I can bleed the whole brake system. Also need to see how much of this interior came with the car. I know that the main center console did, but I don't know about all the shifter trim and stuff. Because if I have everything and this e-brake is not going to be able to work, then I'm probably going to just sell that e-brake and buy the IRP setup that I have in this car. So that way I can run all the interior trim pieces while still having the hydraulic e-brake. So there's a few things I can do on this car now while I'm still waiting on parts. But cylinder head is still at the machine shop. PBM front brakes, I'm waiting. Angle kit, I'm waiting. Chase Bays lines and brake booster lines, I'm waiting. So still playing the waiting game, but I'm getting excited about this motor and this car. I also still need to delete the oil warmer and run this hose from here straight to the firewall and get rid of that whole mess. They sell a nipple, which I already have, that just goes straight to the block, so the oil filter goes straight to the block. Just makes everything cleaner and more simple under there. Making progress. This car is good to go. This car, my goal was not this weekend, but next weekend to do a shakedown on it. I don't know. If I don't get the head back till Monday or Tuesday, I guess I could probably still make it happen. But that means between now and this weekend, I need to get all these parts that I'm waiting for and get all the brake lines hooked up, the hydro situated, the angle kit on, the steering components hooked up, and try to get the interior to be functional. So that way it's drivable. And then next week, when I get the head back from the machine shop, I'll just have to put the motor back together. But we'll see. I think that's going to be it for this video, guys. Like always, like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. And if you guys want any Villains merch, go ahead and hit up the Villains_drift_merch Instagram page. I do have t-shirts and hoodies available right now, left over from Final Bout, so I'm offering shipping on those. And yeah, just message me on there and tell me what you're looking for. There's 2 different designs, one of the Villains OG logos as well as the Enjoy Drift Club shirt and hoodie. And yeah, stay tuned for more content, and hopefully in the next week and a half that the RB car will be running and driving. I doubt it. There's always all the little stuff, you know, just like the steering rack. I didn't even notice those hard lines were missing until I put the bushings in. So 1 step forward, 2 steps back seems to be the common theme when you take over someone else's project. But hopefully the next week and a half goes a little smoother, and that thing will be on the road soon. So stay tuned.